The second they walked away, the fairy tale cracked, and the media realized it had just lost control of the script. This was never going to be a quiet exit, not from an institution built on image, tradition, and tightly managed storytelling, and definitely not in an era where streaming platforms, viral clips, and personal brands can rewrite the narrative in real time. The moment Harry and Meghan stepped out of the royal system, the story stopped being a palace production and turned into a global content war. What people are really watching isn't just a family rift. It's a power struggle over narrative ownership.
It's marvelous that we have this terrific family. I wrote a very critical book of Prince Charles 4 years ago, which he hated.
The Oprah interview.
In those months when I was pregnant, all around this same time.
Before the British royal family. But I think the public mood towards Catherine is so beneficent.
For decades, royal coverage followed a strict formula: controlled access, carefully staged appearances, statements filtered through official channels. The monarchy understood the press. The press understood the monarchy. It was a dance, choreographed, predictable, mutually beneficial. Then suddenly, two major characters walked off that stage and signed with platforms that don't ask for palace approval. That's when the tone shifted from ceremony to confrontation. Because now, instead of royal correspondents getting tidbits through traditional channels, the biggest headlines come from documentaries, memoirs, and global interviews released on their own timeline. The gatekeepers didn't just lose access, they lost control of pacing. And when media institutions lose control, they don't go quiet. They get louder. Watch how fast the cycle spins now. A project gets announced. Within minutes, headlines split into two extremes. One side frames it as brave truth-telling. The other calls it calculated image management. Analysts, commentators, and influencers jump in instantly, each one translating the same event into completely different meanings. The story becomes less about what actually happened and more about which version of events gains traction first. That's the new battlefield. Interpretation. Because here's the uncomfortable truth: most people don't watch full interviews, read full books, or stream entire series before forming opinions. They see clips, quotes, reaction videos, headlines written for maximum emotional punch. By the time the public debates something, they're usually reacting to a highlight reel curated by strangers. And highlight reels are designed for impact, not balance.
If they go ahead and slander the royal family.
The royal angle makes it even more explosive. Royal stories carry centuries of symbolism, duty, legacy, national identity. So when modern celebrity storytelling, confessional, emotional, brand-driven, collides with that old-world structure, sparks fly in every direction. To supporters, it looks like reclaiming a voice. To critics, it looks like monetizing family tension. Both sides feel certain, both sides feel justified, and the media ecosystem thrives on that divide. Because division drives engagement, engagement drives revenue, and outrage travels faster than nuance ever could.
This isn't just Candace talking. This time, an insider from inside Portland Hospital, the very place Meghan said.
The commentary industry has grown around this like vines around a mansion. Former insiders, biographers, PR experts, body language readers, everyone has a take. Every facial expression becomes a headline. Every silence becomes a theory. If they speak, it's dissected. If they don't, the silence becomes the story. There is no neutral ground once you become a global narrative symbol. And that's what they become. Symbols in a much bigger argument. Tradition versus modernity. Privacy versus publicity. Institution versus individual. People project their own beliefs onto the situation, using it as proof of whatever they already think about fame, power, and media ethics. That projection keeps the fire burning long after individual events fade. Streaming platforms amplify everything. A single series doesn't just air and disappear, it spawns think pieces, reaction channels, panel debates, and endless social media threads. The original message gets sliced into dozens of angles, each tailored for a different audience. By the end, the conversation is bigger than the content that started it, and once that machine starts, it doesn't really stop. Traditional royal coverage continues in parallel. Ceremonies, speeches, charity events, and the contrast fuels even more narratives. Stability versus disruption, continuity versus reinvention. The media doesn't have to pick a hero or a villain, it profits from the contrast itself. Attention is the currency, conflict is the fuel. Every new announcement raises the stakes. Every project has to justify itself in the court of public opinion before it's even released. Is it revealing enough? Too revealing? Honest? Strategic? Necessary? Opportunistic? The expectations are impossible because the audience isn't one audience. It's millions of people watching for completely different emotional reasons. Some want vindication, some want inspiration, some just want drama. And drama always wins. Meanwhile, the narrative treadmill keeps moving. Even attempts at stepping back become part of the story. A low-profile period turns into speculation. A quiet month becomes a theory. In the modern fame economy, silence isn't an escape hatch. It's an empty space that other voices rush to fill. That's the real media war. Not a shouting match between two sides, but a non-stop collision between lived experience and manufactured narrative, between what happens and what gets packaged, edited, and sold. And the loudest version usually isn't the most accurate one. It's the most clickable. The real question isn't who's winning. It's whether anyone involved can ever truly log off once their life has become a permanent global content stream. And here's where the story turns from spectacle into survival. Because once your life becomes serialized content, you're no longer just living, you're performing continuity. Every public move has to connect to the last one. Every project has to feel like the next chapter. The audience expects an arc, a payoff, a resolution. Real life doesn't work that way, but the content machine demands that it does. That pressure changes how stories get told. Moments that might have stayed private in another lifetime now carry strategic weight. Timing becomes everything. When to speak, when to stay silent, when to launch something new. When to disappear just long enough to make people wonder what's coming next. Even authenticity starts getting questioned. Not because emotion isn't real, but because people no longer trust anything that exists in front of a camera. Fame in the streaming era comes with a built-in lie detector made of public skepticism. And the longer this media war drags on, the more exhausting it becomes, not just for the audience, but for the people at the center of it. Because the narrative never resets to zero. Every new development drags the entire backstory with it. A new interview isn't just an interview, it's a sequel. A new project isn't just creative work, it's another statement. There is no clean slate when millions of strangers are keeping score. That's the trap of modern visibility. Reinvention is expected, but reinvention is never fully believed. Meanwhile, the media ecosystem keeps mutating. Traditional outlets compete with YouTubers. YouTubers compete with TikTok commentators. Commentators compete with anonymous accounts that slice clips into 10-second emotional triggers. The distance between event and interpretation is now measured in seconds. Nuance doesn't have time to breathe before opinion locks into place. And once a narrative hardens, it's almost impossible to melt. Supporters dig in. Critics dig deeper. Algorithms learn which angle keeps people watching and start feeding them more of the same. The story stops being something you follow and starts being something you're fed. Over time, audiences don't just consume the narrative, they live inside their preferred version of it. That's how media wars sustain themselves without ever officially being declared. There's also the fatigue factor, the part nobody likes to admit. Constant exposure creates diminishing emotional returns. What once felt shocking starts to feel routine. What once sparked global debate turns into background noise. The risk then becomes escalation, the unspoken pressure to make each new chapter louder than the last just to break through the numbness. But escalation is dangerous. It raises stakes, deepens divisions, and makes reconciliation, with family, with institutions, with public perception, feel further away each time. At the same time, the public appetite for redemption stories never disappears. People love a comeback. They love growth. They love closure. The problem is that redemption requires a pause in hostilities, and media wars don't pause easily. There's always another headline, another clip, another interpretation ready to pull everyone back into the ring. So the question becomes, can a narrative built on conflict ever evolve into one built on resolution without losing the attention that made it powerful in the first place? Because attention, once captured, demands to be fed. There's also a generational shift happening under the surface. Younger audiences don't consume royalty, celebrity, or fame the way older generations did. They expect transparency, vulnerability, and direct-to-camera storytelling. They're used to influencers narrating their own lives. To them, polished silence can feel suspicious, while oversharing can feel relatable. That cultural shift is gasoline on the fire. What one generation sees as breaking sacred boundaries, another sees as finally being honest. The same action lands completely differently depending on who's watching, and platforms amplify both reactions equally. This is why the media war doesn't have a single battlefield. It's happening across demographics, countries, and platforms at the same time. A headline that sparks outrage in one corner of the internet sparks empathy in another. There is no universal verdict anymore, only parallel realities moving side by side. And somewhere in all of that noise, the original human story gets harder to hear. Because behind every viral clip and dramatic headline are real people trying to navigate consequences that don't come with a manual. There's no guidebook for being both a symbol and a person at the same time. No training for living inside a narrative that strangers feel ownership over. But the machine doesn't slow down for that. The cycle continues: announcement, reaction, backlash, defense, analysis, repeat. Each turn of the wheel pulling the story further from its starting point and deeper into mythology. That's what this has become: modern mythology built in real time. Not fairy tales with clear heroes and villains, but evolving legends shaped by whoever holds the microphone at any given moment. And in mythology, facts matter less than narrative cohesion. What feels true to an audience often outweighs what can actually be verified. Which brings us back to the core of this media war: control. Not control over events, those are messy and human, but control over framing. Over which version of the story gets archived in the public memory. Because long after the headlines stop trending, what remains is the storyline people remember, the simplified arc, the emotional takeaway. And right now, that ending is still being written in real time, episode by episode, platform by platform. The real outcome won't be decided in a palace, a studio, or a newsroom. It'll be decided in the collective memory of an audience that never stops watching, even when the people at the center of the story wish, just for a moment, that they could step out of frame and let the cameras roll somewhere else.